In my view, one of the key skills that CEOs require in their first CPO appointment is the ability to seamlessly switch between being able to define and link the people agenda to the business agenda, then to change gear, roll up their sleeves, and embed this new approach. And it's this agility of thinking and action that requires exceptional comms skills, people leadership, senior level influencing, but ultimately, and I think critically, it requires a natural desire to bring a vision to life. And we often talk about variety in the role of a CPO, being comfortable switching from leadership team advisor 1 minute to dealing with the detail of a particularly emotive people issue the next. And I feel that those CPOs who can do both, but do both authentically, are the ones who really drive change, drive transformation, and take people on a journey, particularly in smaller organisations that haven't necessarily seen the value that a great CPO can bring historically.
So one of the things that we often get asked by CEOs when we're hiring a CPO into their team is being asked to look for people who bring strong commercial awareness. And I think within the HR context, that is about finding people who genuinely immerse themselves in the organisation and who can talk with insight using data and with true kind of robust examples of where and how they've supported the organisation. And I think when you're working as part of that executive team, you're stepping into that arena where you need to have the confidence and you need to be credible with your peers when you're debating and sharing ideas, when you're looking at challenging business issues. And I think much of that comes from actually wanting to invest and immerse yourself in the business operation and being clear that you have a voice too, and that you can bring your own insights to that table. And I think the other area on commercial awareness actually links to reward. So for the first time when you step into a CPO role, you own the whole reward agenda along with the CEO and the CFO. And therefore you need to be comfortable working with, what's the data in front of you? Because as we know, reward is hugely emotive, and building your reward strategy, and one that is linked truly to kind of what are the business drivers. So I think, for me and talking to CPOs who've stepped into their first CPO arena, often they talk about one of the biggest things is that stretch that comes with being part of that executive team. And having to hold their own around that table, and stepping out of their own comfort zone of HR, but being very capable and in their own space as a business leader too.
One of the biggest challenges we face when putting a CPO into an organisation for the first time is the journey that the CEO and their top team goes through as part of this appointment. So an HR leader will come in and be expected to build or grow or transform a people function. But also, if they are mandated with the evolution of the culture, transformation of an organisation, the leadership team is where that starts. And so a CPO will need to build relationships with their peers and have a great relationship with their CEO, but also challenge them as a leader of a business, challenge their communications, their capability, maybe the relationships they've built with the other members of the C-suite. And that is a knife edge for any CPO going in there, not least because it's often a surprise to the CEO and their top teams just how much change starts with them. So a CPO has to be very aware of that double challenge, build relationships, contribute to business strategy, but also hold a mirror up to that top team and highlight sometimes where change needs to start.
When a CEO is recruiting their first CPO, on occasions the need can be so pressing that an interim CPO might be sought in the first instance. And there are a couple of key criteria that nearly all CEOs tell me that they're looking for in these individuals. Firstly, is the experience of leading an organisation through a significant growth agenda. Now, that doesn't necessarily need to be purely from a headcount perspective, taking an organisation, say, of 50 now through to 250 in the next year or two, but also from a financial point of view, the experience of having led an organisation through their next round of funding, for example. And the second thing sort of ties into that growth piece, and it's that experience of larger organizations in some instances, but an understanding and an ability to see the journey the business is on, so that you can focus not just on what the organization needs from an HR perspective right now, but what it will need in 2, 3, 5 years' time, so that you can give the advice to that CEO and help them future-proof the organization for success.
What does it take to be a successful first-time CPO? I think often when talking to CEOs about what they're looking for in a CPO, influencing skills are seen as one of the most crucial skills. In order to really bring together C-suite level employees to integrate business-wide strategies, it's essential that a CPO is able to communicate effectively. If I think about a recent search that I've run for a fast-growing media business, the CEO was looking to hire their first CPO. The organisation had grown extensively through acquisition over recent months, and whilst some of the newly acquired businesses had some level of HR support, ultimately there was a need for a CPO to build a group-wide HR function to really ensure that there was more consistency across the organisation. In this instance, the CPO needed to communicate and influence across the various individual brands to drive company change at a cultural level and create a greater sense of being part of one company, whilst also taking into account the history and legacy of these individual brands. It was essential that the CPO had strong influencing skills in order to drive positive change through communicating with business leaders in a confident and positive way.
Hello everyone. Right, my key factor for being a successful first-time CHRO is having the ability to engage and speak to the business in a language and terminology they understand. I'll give you a real-time example. I was recently speaking to a newly appointed CEO of a PE-backed business with ambitious growth plans. He'd inherited a very operational HR function and was considering upgrading the job and appointing the first CHRO at board level. And he asked me what difference that would make to his business. So I launched into a speech around HR business transformation, business partnering, purpose and belonging, HR data and analytics. I threw diversity and inclusion in there. I was talking about culture, enabling strategy and change. And bless him, he stopped me and said, "Look, I'm really sorry, Hugo, I don't understand a word you're saying." And I'm so glad that he did, because then we began to talk around actually what a people function can do to the business and how that can have a commercial impact, how that can help him retain the people he wants to retain. So we broke it down and simplified it, and he really got it by the end of it. So the key factor for me would be having the ability to simplify HR, reduce the terminology, and engage with the business in a really meaningful, commercial and strategic way. I'll leave you with a quick story that hopefully demonstrates that. A friend of mine was appointed as the HR director of a nationwide car dealership, and she was desperate to get some time into the CEO's diary to talk about all things HR. And every time she did, he'd batter away. She wanted to talk about succession planning, not interested, performance management, not interested, business partnering, learning and development. And eventually she met him in the corridor and said, "I found a way that a people strategy can sell you more cars. Can I come and talk to you about it?" And he said, "Yeah, let's have a meeting immediately."